Hey guys, today we're going to discuss when value gets in the way of winning.
But just before we get into the video for today, if you are enjoying the content that I'm putting out there, please do consider subscribing, turning on that notifications. It really helps us out. But with that being said, let's get right on into the video for today.
Alrighty, so we're discussing when value gets in the way of winning, or I guess in the way of progress, I guess. Because I like some nice value, some nice, I draw a card, I play a land, that kind of nice little value. I do like that. But then again, at a certain point, it does feel very much sometimes like you're spinning your wheels and not really going anywhere. You're not actually achieving a whole lot with what you're actually setting out to do. And sometimes certain synergies and certain effects just sort of happen to happen in your deck because, well, like this happens a lot with my Omnath Locus of Creation deck, where it does have all those three modes. The most important and the most best mode, like in my opinion, is the second mode to get 4 mana. The first mode, 4 life, just okay, just fine. Very nice when you're using your fetch lands and your shock lands and things like that throughout the game, which sometimes you do have. So it's nice to gain that life back and whatnot. It's also nice to buffer your life total, but not the most important thing. It's okay, it's there, and it is useful to some degree, but not nearly the most useful. And I have changed the way I've built that deck. I've built it like a landfall deck or like a token deck or whatever. I've just built it as a big mana, let's go home, sort of deck. But that's the kind of deck that I'm sort of talking about. And there's lots of decks that are like that and are like playing all these like value cards. I used to play a lot more value cards in that deck that are just like, if I happen to have it and I happen to have this other thing, oh boy, won't I get some stuff out of it? But when you actually think about it and you actually go, well, how is this actually getting me towards what I actually really want to be doing? Why am I not just playing something that immediately gains me that value or gives me that payoff or sets me up to the next thing to get me to the cards or whatnot or into the position that I need to be in so that I can start doing what I want to be doing, which is, trying to close out this game, trying to get enough bodies, trying to get enough power, or whatnot, or whatever you're trying to do. I'm always trying to do that same simple, basic, straightforward thing, but in like unique, different ish ways for the most part. Like, okay, cool. How can I make this deck into a, I'm going to attack you with stuff deck for the most part? That, or I'm turning it into a token deck, which is always, well, how am I going to attack you with all my tokens deck? But whatever, that's just me. But again, at what point does like, oh well, I'm gonna draw a card and play a land. I'm gonna draw a card and play a land. I'm gonna draw a card, play a land. Do all these things like that, or I'm gonna sacrifice this thing, put it in my graveyard, then I'm gonna return it, or I'm gonna return something with CMC less than it, or I'm gonna do this, blah 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 blah. I'm gonna bring this back and then sacrifice this and then return something that's CMC blah blah blah, and then do this and then do that. When does all this like wheel spinning and churning and whatnot and cantrips or whatever, just like, I'm going to draw a card, scry one and draw, and then, whatever, or do this and do this. I'm going to brainstorm, draw 3 cards, put 2 back on top. Then I'm going to shuffle. Then I'm going to do that. Like, when does all of this, like, accumulate? Like, it's like, I know that some people like very dirtily sort of style, more controlling decks and whatnot, and sometimes like I've played a couple of those decks where it's like, you're trying to find your payoffs and things like that, and you do need those cantrips and whatnot, not just for finding your payoffs, but actually activating your power payoffs, like Tower End. If you actually have Tower End as your commander, I would suggest that you don't even worry about having basically any other payoffs. Just have a whole bunch of instant sorceries. Have all these cantrips, of course, but also just have a whole bunch of counter spells or whatnot, or kill spells or whatever. and then just be like, oh, okay, cool, I'm done. And land, of course, and ramp and whatnot. But after that, you're done. Like at a certain point, all the other value-y sort of stuff that you can get out of that deck is like there in the command, and there's no point really in doing very much else or whatnot, because that's all that you can really get out of it. And all you need to do is get those drakes and then punch people with those drakes. You'll be drawing so many cards from all these cantrips and whatnot that you've got anyway or whatnot that you don't really care about anything else. All you need is those drakes off of your commander and you're good to go. So you don't really need like all these other cards that do something else in your deck. You don't really need that other support. All you need is like some removal, some cantrips, and some lands and ramp. That's it. So, like you've got to focus in what you're kind of doing with your deck, and you've got to kind of ask yourself, okay, well, how is this card getting me to my game plan? Or is it all just a value play? That's like what Tireless Provisioner and some of those other cards are kind of like. It's kind of like, oh, this is cool. It would have been a whole lot cooler on turn 2, 3, or whatever, early game when I could have really used it or whatnot. And you always get those moments when you go, oh, cool, I've got one of my 2 drops laid or whatnot or whatever, or whatever, or I've got one of my 8 drops or whatever it is early, or whatnot. But again, those value cards that don't really do a whole lot for themselves or with the rest of the deck when you do get them out, for the most part, it's like, well, how much value do I need for this card to have been worth my time in casting it, or whatnot, or how am I actually going to know when it was good enough or what I got out of it was good enough for what I actually really needed. I really needed more cards, but this card was only giving me more mana, and I didn't really need more mana at that point. All I needed was more cards so that I could get back into the game or get back some of the cards from my graveyard or something like that, so that I could get, one of those card advantage cards and be like, okay, cool, let's try to, set this thing down and see what we can draw into in the next turn and see where we go from there and try to get back in this thing, because like you can always brick no matter what. And bricks can be anything sometimes, like, oh, I have too many lands. Well, any lands is a brick. Oh, what's that? I haven't got enough lands. Well, anything that's not a land is now a brick. So, like you can find yourself in both situations a lot of the time where you're like, I need lands, but I'm not getting them. Or I need mana, but I'm not getting any mana. So, like, anything that's not mana to me is a brick until I get those things that do produce me mana, so that I can actually, deploy more things and do what I need to be doing to, start generating lots and lots of value, so that I can, just go off and get so far ahead that I'll be able to take over the game and whatnot, in one fashion or another. So, like, you've got to weigh up how, like, these value cards will actually help you when you're actually, like, needing them, and how much of certain cards you need, because in a deck like that produces mana, lots of mana, like my Omnath deck, it needs way, way, way more card draw and card selection and that sort of thing than it needs ramp. Yes, sure, it needs ramp as well, but it doesn't need nearly as much ramp per se as what perhaps other decks would need. Although in some ways, weirdly, it needs more ramp in some ways, because if you count like Oracle of Mordai or whatnot, things like that, or Mina and Den ramp, though I don't really sort of count them as ramp, although my commander I count as ramp. So it's just trying to get my commander to trigger for that second time. That's the value that I want to get out of that. And the rest of the deck is trying to form around that ability happening and is aware of that ability happening. So, I know that I need way more card draw and card selection with that deck, because, hey, look, what's that? I've got 8 mana suddenly. What's that? I can play either 2 4-drops or whatever, or just an 8-drop, or even a 10-drop right here, right now, okay, cool, I will. Why not? So it can be very like that, where you're like, oh, okay, cool. Well, the first turn I played land, then I played land, then I ramped, then I played land, then I got my commander, drew a card. Then I probably played land, played ramp, or played something that made me play extra lands. Then I probably played, 2 of the other cards that are in my hand on that turn because I ramped with my commander, getting that 4 extra mana. So now your hand is full of like maybe 3, 4 cards because you've played like 3 of your lands already, 4 of your lands already. As long as you've drawn them, your ramp, your early ramp that you needed to get to so that you could, get going early, which for some reason seems to never happen. It seems to only happen after the commander's out, but whatever. Always seems to come out on turn 4, whatever. But still, it's fine, I swear. But anyway, then you're like, okay, cool. Where do I go from here? Well, I really need card draw because, well, I've only got a couple cards left in hand. And if what I've played, doesn't survive to the next turn, which sometimes it won't because, hey, people are like, oh, well, that seems a bit scary, whatnot. You'd be like, well, it kind of is, but, it's not that good because, hey, I haven't actually gotten that much value out of them until I actually get in for damage. And even then, technically, realistically, I technically haven't even done anything. It's the same as Mill. It technically really hasn't done anything until it's actually killed somebody. It seems like a threat for a while until it's like, oh, okay, cool. Well, now I'm out, and now the person that actually has, some stuff together and was able to build up behind the scenes just pulls out the win. Because it's like, oh, okay, it sets up really quick. And there's decks that are just like that. It sets up really quick and it seems like a big threat, but it's actually, pretty frail for the most part. But if it's left unchecked for a little while, then it does become a bit of a threat. But it needs to be left alone. But that's another sort of discussion for another time to a degree. But, you know, again, how much of like more value or more mana do I need? Probably not very much. So at that point, where you might want more lands, certainly still sometimes, and that's why a lot of people do run that abundance sort of effect to be like, okay, cool, I can, whenever I draw, I can choose land or non-land, and I'll get what I want for the most part. But then again, it's still like, well, yeah, sure, I will kind of get what I want, but I won't actually really get what I want. I'll get quote unquote gas if I really want gas, but if the top card non land or lands that's on my deck is not the land that I actually really want or really need, then it's kind of like, well, uh, that's a bit awkward. It's an extra value card, and that is nice in certain circumstances, and can combo with certain other things. It's not in my deck in that deck anymore, which is kind of where I'm, kind of leading that to say, hey, it was too much value-y sort of stuff for what I kind of wanted the deck to do now. I kind of wanted to move away from I'm going to play 50 lands somehow because that's kind of what the deck kind of wanted to do. It kind of wanted to be just like, okay, well, I'm just going to play 50 lands and get, a whole bunch of tokens and whatnot and all this other stuff and then, go from there. Where it's now like, oh, okay, cool, I'm just going to play this big bad thing and hopefully it survives or, hopefully it has haste somehow and then we get some value out of it to cast more things that will hopefully do something and then, keep the gas kind of flowing. So that's kind of like what I mean. And it depends on certainly what your deck is and what you're kind of doing and the framework in which you're kind of working with. Certainly, again, because like there are some decks that work well with having lots of just this is value stuff in the deck by itself. Like something like Tulane wouldn't really, because Tulane already creates most of the value that you kind of need for the most part. So you don't really need a lot of these other value-y kind of things for the most part. Um, you just need that, consistency of lands and creatures for the most part. You just need that engine going. So you just need to hit land or non-land and that all the time, all creature and and land. Um, Same kind of with Corval, but these two are often so interchangeable with each other because they're so OP and just from the same set and the same time. Um, so they often get lumped together like this. But it is the same kind of thing in that sense that Corval generates all the value. So you don't really need any other sort of things that much in the deck that really sacrifice that much. Yes, treasures or whatnot, that's fine, or whatever. Things that generate them or whatever, that's fine, that's different. You don't need like Viserys for the most part. Like if you're in a list where okay, I need to protect my commander, and the best way to protect my commander is to sack my commander or sack the thing that they're targeting immediately so that it doesn't get exiled, whatnot. Um, so that is one thing that again, but whatever. Beyond that, you don't really need like that much other stuff to sack because you've already got Corvold, so you're just like, oh, okay, cool. If it makes things that free sacrifice anyway, it's fine. But beyond that, I don't really need sack outlets per se. I just need things to sack. I just need all of this stuff that I want to be able to sack, bring back maybe if I'm on that kind of plan, or just, you know, get in there with my commander or do a whole bunch of damage with, you know, um, Zulaport cutthroats and things like that. So, you know, you don't need those other, those other pieces that what your commander's mostly already doing for the most part because your commander has that thing covered. And I was actually going to do like a, guess kids training wheels type decks, which is basically just like Tulane and that. So let me know also if you want to see me still do that, but I might still do it. Who knows? Um, but anyway, yeah, like you need to know that not just everything needs to be that and that alone, or that's the way that I'm going, and this is the direction of the play. Like okay, cool. I have Viserys here, or I have you know what? Oh god, I can't remember what the other one drop one is right now, but um, I know it's a zombie or whatever. But anyway, I have these five, or six, whatever, one or two drop, free sack outlets or whatever. Um, cool. I've played all of them, but I don't have anything to sack except themselves. I mean, I could sack them still, but where's all my fodder? Where's all my stuff that I really want to sack? So they get those sorts of things can get in the way of the main plan of, oh, okay, cool. I maybe need a few of these, or whatever, or I really want my commander to have haste because I wanted to do something right away, and Swiftfoot Boots would, or Lightning Greaves and things like this would protect it a lot better, or Ward or something like that. Would protect it a lot better for the most part than, you know, Viserys here. And most like blue decks that go up against Corvold decks and things like that are just going to counter it, so you're not going to even get it on the field. Um, but yeah, like beyond like strategic differences, but you know, when you get to like this is what my commander's doing again, Tulane. Go back to that one for something else to discuss and to get the point there. at the end here, hopefully at least, is that, okay, why am I going to run something else that, generates me all of this other, value, like, I don't know, uh, whatever it is, not Coiling Oracle, what's it called? The 2 mana snake that whenever you play a land, you get a mana. I can't remember its name right now. But yeah, like things like that. Why would I need to play that? Like it's good value to get extra mana, but again, at a certain point, it's like, well, I don't actually need extra mana. What I need is more cards, or what I need is, either that or I need to just be like, again, you can just have that storming off sort of thing where you're just like, okay, cool. Well, that generates me mana because I've got also a Shire, so that generates a mana, or it generates a landfall as well. So um, when I play a creature, so it just does all this other stuff. You want payoffs from, hey, I played a creature. Okay, what does that trigger? Or I played a land. Okay, what does that trigger? Did I get a 4/4 beast? Did I get a, sapling? What did I get from that? Did I get an angel? Did I get a, you know, bird? What did I get? Like what was the payoff for me playing that creature? What was the payoff for me playing that land? Like, or was the creature the payoff, or was the land the payoff? Was it Field of the Dead, or something? Or was, I don't think you can have Valakut in there because it's not red, but still, like, was it something like Valakut or something like that? Like, or what's it called? Gear's Crate or whatever. Things like that. Was it, just the thing that's going to make me 30 or 40 mana? So, again, yeah, you just need to be like, okay, where does the value train sort of end and my deck actually start to be able to not just spin the wheels and like sit here and take 28-minute turns while everyone else is just watching me play solitaire over here. Where does the teeth come in? Where does all this value end? Am I just going to mill myself out? Oh, what's that? I only have 12 cards left in my deck. Oh, and I still don't have a really good way to kill people. Like, that's what I mean. Like, you've had too much value, but you haven't had the things that you need to, pay off that value. So, yeah, just finding that balance and knowing that you need to find that balance is what, I would suggest for people to look at. And that's what I've been looking at my decks as of late, is that, cool, I can generate all this value, but that value has to get me from point A to point B to point C to point D, E, etc. Blah blah blah. So yeah, it has to always be going somewhere, not just this is value for value's sake, and I'm just sort of spinning the wheels. And it does sometimes get irritating when it's just like, why didn't I draw the thing that I wanted to draw? Because you can always have those moments, but again, when you pack your deck with more of the cards that you go, okay, cool, this is the type of thing that I actually want to play, these are the type of bombs that I want to hit people with, then you're more likely to have the bombs that you need when you want to actually be trying to hit those people, or trying to do whatever you're doing with the deck that you're doing. So, yeah, but you guys can let me know what you guys think. Write your thoughts down there in the comments below. I'll be sure to respond to any and all of the comments. Really love interacting with you guys, talking about EH and all the geeky things that we love in it. But yeah, if I don't see you down there in those comments, I'll see you in the next one.